Welcome to Flashback Files, the podcast where career and leadership lessons from the past guide your journey forward. I'm Josh Green, and here we'll explore both my own experiences and the stories of others, unpacking wins, doubts, pivots, and the moments of clarity that shape us as leaders. You don't need to have it all figured out. Leadership often shows up in unexpected places, at work, at home, and in the choices we make every day. By reflecting on aspirations, mistakes, and breakthroughs, we can discover how the decisions of today build the leaders we become tomorrow. Each episode blends conversations and personal reflections, all with one purpose: to help you lead yourself first so you can lead with others with confidence, purpose, and integrity. Whether you're just starting out, making a career shift, or simply seeking more clarity in how you show up in life, this podcast is for you. Because you don't need every answer, you just need to start asking the right questions.
Okay, so we are going to go into it soon.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to kick it off with like a little bit of the objective, and then we'll dive into just kind of I'm going to do an introduction to the podcast and that sort of thing, and then hand it over to you. Okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So
You got this. You got this.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Flashback Files. We're happy to have you here. Today I have a special guest, Sanya who will help us understand exactly what the gap or maybe some the experience that she had in terms of coming out of university into her first role in her career. So myself being a little bit removed from that experience, we thought it'd be a great idea to have Sanya share her story in terms of the experience. So Sanya and I first met back when she was taking her university program. I think it was fourth year, Sanya?
Third or fourth year, yeah.
Fourth year. And she embarked on a transformative leadership experience with Dr. Tila McTeer. And I had also participated in that program back when I was doing my MBA. So as a bit of a coach through the transformative leadership experience, Sonia and I got a chance to get to know each other. I think that was, 2 years ago?
Yeah. And I think we've stayed in touch since.
Yeah. So we've stayed in touch since. And here we are. The concept of the podcast that we're putting on for you today really started to blossom as we were talking throughout. So Sonia, before we go any further, maybe you can just give the listeners a sense of who you are and what your journey's been like in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Sanya. Yeah, I mean, I started university during the thick of COVID. So it was definitely an interesting experience, to say the least. I think like the first year was completely online. So it was a bit of a write-off, unfortunately. But I think second year is when we finally started setting foot onto the campus. Some courses were online, some weren't. It was just a blur of emotions and a blur of things. During my undergrad, I worked at a bank, just in retail banking, nothing too fancy. And it really helped me understand, like, fundamentals of finance. Um, and then later on, I ended up getting an internship at another bank for 4 months. Did that. And soon after I graduated, I think it was last June, actually. So just past a year from graduation. And I took a bit of a break, worked at a nonprofit part-time, and now I'm working at an automotive company, BMW Group. So it's been quite a whirlwind for the past couple of years, but I've learned a lot. And I think, Josh, like you've been a really good witness to that. Like you've seen my highs and lows and the person that I've kind of grown into today. So I'm kind of happy to be sharing that. And
Yeah, excellent. So that's a really great summary. What we'll do for the listeners is start to unpack the experience. I think going around the last year of high school. So for the listeners, what we'll do is temperature checks with Sanya in terms of what her mindset was, in terms of how likely she was to find the role that she's been looking for, starting at the end of out of high school. And then maybe even to today, maybe how that's evolved, or maybe it hasn't evolved. But so can we start with the last year of high school, the understanding of what you having a career meant and how likely you were to find that role that you were looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So, funny enough, I think near the beginning of high school, I was hell bent on being a doctor. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to help the world. I'm going to do like crazy things. And then I had exams for the first time ever near the end of first semester in grade 9. I was like, oh my God, I'm never doing this ever again. Like, never again. Because, like, being a doctor is like years and years of schooling. And I wasn't like terrible at my academics, so to say, but I'm more of like someone who likes to do hands-on things. I'm not necessarily someone who likes to sit and like read and study. I like strategic thinking and I like, using my hands, so to say, and having more hands-on experiences. So I steered away from that and I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a doctor. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So I kind of just chose a generic stream of business because it's very broad and it's very generic that I can kind of pick whatever stream I like and hone in on that. So I took business courses all throughout high school. I graduated and then I was like, yeah, okay, like I'll just do my Bachelor of Commerce. But Bachelor of Commerce is so broad. Like commerce itself is also a very broad topic. Like there's nothing, yeah, it just covers a lot of industries, a lot of different topics, a lot of everything. And then, so to your point, I had no idea what I wanted to do going into university. I just knew that I wanted to do something in business and then that's it. So I was pretty lost. And then I think COVID hit, or was it already had hit before I went to university. So sitting at home made me really anxious and I was just really antsy and whatnot. And then I was just applying to random jobs everywhere. I think I did like a tiny job at like as like an administrative assistant at like a small accounting firm for a couple of months. And then I was like, okay, like, whatever, being a South Asian, like kind of coming from a South Asian family, like there's a bit of a prestige in working at the banks, at least back in India. I never really grew up there, so I didn't understand it. But my parents were like, like apply at the banks, apply at the banks. And I was like, okay, why not? um, so I applied at the banks and then I got my very first job at TD. Worked there as a retail banker and it taught me a lot of great information. So yeah, that's kind of the beginning of where my career started. Uh, yeah.
Okay, cool. And so if you were to quantify out of 10, let's say take us to your first year of university, how likely did you feel that you were going to find the role that you wanted to do for the rest of your career?
I'm someone that gets bored really quickly. Like even till date, even when I was a kid till date, I get bored really, really quickly. So I did my retail banking job for a bit and I was like, okay, now what? I kind of hit a plateau and I was like, all right, what's next? So even then, like whenever I kind of hit that plateau and I was like, okay, I need to find something else to do. I didn't know what. I don't know what that looked like. I didn't know anything. And whenever I used to talk to people, they're like, you don't know what you want to do? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh my God, okay, I guess I'm like, late or like I don't know what I'm doing. But in terms of a scale of 1 to 10, it was like negative, like no idea at all. But yeah, I think it works out in the end. So
Yeah. Personally, I can relate to that as well. No clarity whatsoever in terms of my first year in college at the time. So you touched on being in COVID for, the first year of university, correct?
yeah, first and a bit of second year, yeah.
So take us through the second year of university when you first step on campus and how that might have changed things, your experience.
Well, I think I'm gonna backtrack a bit, but like even before going into university, like I was kind of promised, so to say, like a really crazy experience, really liberating and like, oh my God, like you're gonna have the time of your life, you're gonna go to these parties, you're gonna go like meet these new people, you're gonna like, and then COVID hit and I was obviously devastated. So going into second year, I was like, oh my God, this is my year. And I remember it got to a point like I was so desperate to be on campus. I had an 8:30 a.m. online class and I would literally just go on campus and sit and just take it on campus because I was like, you know what? I want to be in the environment. I want to be around the people. I was sick of sitting in my room. And finally, the restrictions started loosening up at that point. I had some courses online and some in person. And I was like, you know what? Like I called a bunch of friends that were in my program. I didn't even know them too well. I was like, hey, like, do you want to just go on campus and sit and just take the class over there? And they're like, yeah, cool, let's do it. So yeah, that's I that's how it started. And funny enough, uh, that so-called crazy experience that I wanted to have of university did start the very first day I set foot on campus in second year. I actually ended up meeting a boy at that point, who ended up like our relationship taught me a lot, and it was a pretty big milestone in my life. I still would say it's a pretty big milestone. It taught me a lot about myself and all that. So that was the beginning of something for sure.
Yeah. So definitely you touched on it being a pivotal moment for you. If you were to maybe dive into how that might have impacted your academics or your experience with school, like maybe how you were before boyfriend and then during, what did that
Yeah.
look like?
So I guess like in my first year, it was very much like I didn't it was just me in my room. It was just me and my computer and my four walls. And so I had nothing really to do except school. And I was always like an overachiever. Like I always wanted to do well in school. I always had done well in school, except for elementary school. That was a bit of an interesting part because, whenever I was in elementary school, I had just moved from Dubai and it was the education system was too new, so I struggled a bit then, but eventually got the hang of it. But yeah, like I was always pretty good at school, and honestly, like it was a big source of validation for me because I had, as I think every girl does, right? Maybe even every person has self-esteem issues, in high school or even at the beginning of university where you're not really sure about yourself. But there is one thing, one quality that you kind of cling on to that kinda helps you validate yourself and makes you feel good about yourself, and for me, that was, my education and my academics. So, whenever I did, meet that boy, it was like a whole new world. It was like that whole very, like, strong chemistry, and it was like that whole, like, young love type thing that you see in the movies, like, it was very, very surreal, and so my academics definitely did take a back seat, like, I would skip classes, or I wouldn't really pay attention to my classes, I would be texting and things like that, but somehow I still remained afloat, I think primarily because the teachers kinda took it easy on us considering that everything was online and there was COVID,
Hmm.
like, a lot of people were going through a lot of mental health issues at that point. So teachers were kinda lenient at that point, and I ended up taking advantage of that for sure. Um, but it did if things were normal, like, I would have definitely like, my academics would have tanked significantly, um, but, you know, yeah, I think that's a pretty good gist of what happened.
Okay. So when you factor that in, looking back, would you have done anything differently?
I think I wouldn't I think that experience for me of meeting that person was extremely pivotal, and it contributes greatly to the person I am today. So I wouldn't go back and change that. But one thing I would change was just setting my boundaries, right? Like, I think whenever you meet someone for the first time and like you just hit it off right away, like you get so excited and you want to be with that person all the time and you want to hang out with them 24/7. And it's almost like life around you doesn't exist. It's like you kind of make your own little bubble. And he was kind of the same. So it was mutual. So whenever two people are really into each other, like you kind of forget like, oh, I have other responsibilities and I have other things to do. So if I were to go back, I would draw a line for myself and be like, okay, it's great to spend time with him, but now you have to get back to your academics, or now you have to go to the gym, or now you have to spend time with your family. And kind of sectioning your day out because at the end of the day, like before I used to think that getting into a relationship was making the other person's life your life. But in reality, what it is that two people who have their own separate lives come together and make it even better. And I think that's something that I've learned now. Took me a long time, but I got there. So yeah, that's kind of what I would like the kind of mindset that I would have.
Okay. Interesting perspective. What took you that short bit of time to learn? It's taken me a couple decades to learn. So good on you for learning early on.
Everyone has their own journey.
So if we fast forward a little bit to your final year of university, so you have experiences, you had, relationship under your belt, a couple years of university. If we check in, let's say your first day of your final year, where are you out of 10 at that point in time in terms of how likely you are to find the role that you'd be in for the rest of your career?
let's bring it up to one. 1 out of 10. Um, the reason being, so during high school, or not high school, during university, I had a roommate, very sharp roommate, amazing girl, very ambitious. And obviously you are the person that you surround yourself with, and so that rubbed off on me a bit. And she would go to these networking events, and like she wanted to get really involved in the banking world. And because I've worked at TD and, the other banks, like I was like, okay, yeah, like cool, like I could totally hop on that boat. And I was like, yeah, like I'll come to these networking events with you. And she'd give me tips on how to like fix my resume and get me interviews and stuff like that. Um, and then I would go to these networking events, and I just felt so dull. Like it just something just didn't click. And like I think whenever I went to these networking events, I went with the mindset of I want to get a job out of this. And people read that. People can sense that because these are professionals who have been in the industry for years. They've dealt with people. They know all of this stuff. And I was a bit of a rookie. I didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, they kind of read it, and like I would never connect with anyone on a personal level because I was like, why? Like, and I would kind of think, like, why am I not getting a referral? Why am I not getting a job? Why am I not getting these interviews? And I kind of grew a bit of a resentment to it. Funny enough, I did end up getting one like investment banking interview. Completely bombed it. Bombed the living hell out of that interview. It was actually a little embarrassing to the point where I think at the end she literally gave me advice on what to do next time because the interview was so bad.
Right.
She felt it was like almost like a bit of pity. And I remember whenever I was trying to study for these interviews for investment banking, I'm like, why am I studying this? Like, I don't care about this. I'm just doing it. It's like finishing another exam. Like sometimes there's certain courses where you like, and there are certain courses that you don't like, and you just study just to get the grade. Which is unfortunate, but sometimes that's just kind of, I guess, the life of a student. And it kind of felt like the same thing. I was like, I'm not even getting a mark out of this. Like, why am I doing all this studying for something that I don't even like? I don't really care about investment banking like that. So, I think at that point I realized I was like, okay, I'm not a finance girly. Even though I worked at the banks does not mean that I'm automatically supposed to go into finance.
Mhm.
It just happened that I hadn't had a job there and had a couple of internships, but that's okay. It doesn't need to go on from there if I don't want it to. So at that point I had a clarity that I don't want to be like a corporate finance girl. I liked the personal finance aspect of it, but definitely not the corporate side.
And that's 100%. So it was more the content that came around finance. Do you think it might have been different if you had maybe a different approach to the networking events? Because I understand like you were doing it to get to the end result versus maybe enjoy the experience and learn, have conversations from it. So, or do you definitively know that you wouldn't have been a finance?
I think it was less about the industry and more about my approach to it. Like, for example, now I'm in a job that I absolutely love. I really, really enjoy it. I love the people and everything. And so now, whenever I ask for a coffee chat, people are so receptive. Like, people welcome it, and I actually build a personal connection with them. And funny enough, like, I talked to a couple people in banking too at one point, and they were like, "Oh, like, do you need a referral?" And I was like, "Wait, what? Wait, that actually happens?" And so I was literally sitting and thinking about it the other day. I'm like, why is my networking going so much better now versus what it did in the past? And I think it was intent, right? Like it was my intention that I went ahead with. And I think people can sense that. It's very easy to sense, especially if you're attuned to yourself. Like you can tell what intent other people are coming in with. And my intent was truly just to get to know them. I had a job, I was doing something that I loved, and I was like, you seem like a really cool person. You do like some really cool stuff. Like, let's talk. And that's exactly what kind of helped me with my networking events. Because at the end of the day, like jobs are jobs, and yes, business is business, but we're people at the end of the day, right? We crave connection, is inherent to us. And funny enough, like that's something that I value too. Like I'm huge on relationships. I love building relationships. I love keeping relationships. Like even whenever third year ended, whenever you and I technically like we didn't have to meet anymore, like I reached out and I was like, "Hey Josh, like I still would love to stay in touch with you and continue to chat because I loved our connection." It kind of goes for everyone out there too. Like I don't really see them as someone who has a job. I see them as someone who's doing something really cool and a person that's really cool and really hardworking. So yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the connection as well. And I think you touched on a really cool point, which is oftentimes when we're networking, we think about the individual who's in the role that we want or at the company that we want to work for. The human element of it. A little bit of a break. That's okay.
Yes.
But there's a human element. Everybody's a human being, has personal interests and that sort of thing. And what I found with our discussion, it was coachee or mentor mentoree as it applies to the transformative leadership experience. But there was a human discussion that we had too, in terms of personal interest and that sort of thing, which I think has made this what we've done more sustainable.
Exactly. And if you think about it, it's like, why are we so, or at least most people, like, why are we so drawn to like spending time with our families? Why are we so drawn to spending time with the people we love? It's almost like our filter comes down a bit. Like whenever you're at work, professional, like, like only like work talk and things like that. But I think the reason why HR, like even like human resources now, they encourage people to meet outside of work and they host like these socials and stuff because they want you to build personal connections with your colleagues. And that is how like the most effective teams work because you're building a personal connection and now it's like that's no longer John, the colleague I work with. That's John, the colleague I work with, and someone that I truly enjoy hanging out with. And that completely changes the trajectory of the work that gets done and even the relationship that you have with the other person. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So take us through, okay, now we're at the last day of graduation, you are done, you've got your degree, and now you're on the hunt. Well, you probably have been on the hunt for a little bit, but this is the time, the moment. Can you walk us through how you were feeling and your mindset at that point in time and, maybe the clarity or lack thereof in terms of what your career direction was going to be?
yeah, I still feel like I was at a 1 at that point, like 1 out of 10. Um, the thing is, I think in my 4th year, near the beginning of my 4th year, I thought I was like, "Okay, graduation's coming. What am I gonna do?" And I started thinking ahead of time, and I was like, "What am I gonna do?" I was like, "Okay, maybe I should do an MBA. Maybe I should pursue school further to kind of avoid figuring out what I like because it's a very messy journey. It's not linear in any way. I think you have to try a lot of different things, a lot of combinations and permutations and things like that. And I don't think I was ready for that. And of course, because academics, I used to get a lot of validation for my academics. I was like, I'm gonna go apply for I'm gonna go give my GMAT and apply for an MBA in the States for like the most top competitive schools in the world. And the thing is, like, it's not like far-fetched. Like I could have done it if I wanted to, but because that decision was made out of fear, it didn't work out. If I had planned this, if I truly had the intention of wanting to go to school in the States and wanting to study, people start prepping for that like 2, 3 years in advance because they know what these schools want. They know the extracurriculars they have to get involved in. They know how to build up and beef up their resume. For me, it was like, oh my God, I'm scared. I need something. Let's just apply. And so I kind of made my 4th year miserable for myself, and that was just all on me. I was like, let me study my GMAT. And by the way, people study the GMAT like again, it takes them about a year to properly study the GMAT. I was like, yep, I'm gonna try it in 4 months. So, as you can expect, 4 or 5 months, something like that. But as you can expect, didn't go well. I bombed the GMAT a couple of times, not only once, but a couple of times. And I still had the audacity to apply because I was like, it's okay, you never know. And I'm glad I did, because it showed me the depth that someone needs to have in order to kind of approach a school that is so prestigious in nature. And basically, it gave me an idea of like how people elevate themselves to kind of go to these top schools and whatnot. So it was really cool, and I got to talk to a lot of cool people too, from different universities, some current students. But I bombed the GMAT. I know I wasn't going to get anywhere, even though I submitted my application. I was like, okay, well, if this doesn't go through, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's exactly what happened. I graduated and I had nothing to do. I was like, I don't know what to apply for. And I was so burnt out because I was studying the GMAT night and day, basically all of 4th year and completing my applications and everything. I was so burnt out. I didn't even want to apply for jobs. I was like, I'm done. I need a break. I can't do this. And then I also have an issue where I said I'm not going to do anything and then I still find something else to do. So I got an email from a professor being like, hey, like, I'm on the board of directors of this nonprofit. Like, we're hiring. Apply if you would like. And I'd reached out to my professor and I was like, yeah, like, absolutely. I'd love to do that. Where so I worked part-time for a bit at a nonprofit. Met some wonderful people with like beautiful people, truly inside and out. Um, and worked in there. And then near the end, I was like, okay, like part-time's good, but now what? I need something that challenges me a bit more. Because again, it was just like an administrative assistant job at the nonprofit, but I needed something that was a bit more challenging. And my parents were also like, are you just gonna do part-time like your whole life? Like what's happening here? Like you're capable of so much more. You have so much potential. Like push yourself. I was like, okay. So around October, I started applying for jobs. Just cold applying, just randomly everywhere, and started having my networking coffee chats and stuff like that. Those coffee chats actually went well, so that's kind of where it started. But yeah, so I started applying, and then and funny enough, like I just cold applied to BMW because I was like, it'd be kind of cool to work there. I didn't know anything about cars or anything like that, but
Mhm.
it'd be kind of cool. Funny enough, I got an interview. Didn't think I'd get through because I was like, first of all, I'm a woman. I don't know anything about cars. Like this is like a guy's industry, like automotive, like women don't really work here, and whatnot. But I still got an interview. I'm like, okay, I think they made a mistake, but I'll just go, get some interview practice, and try it out. And so I did, and I got through the second round of interviews as well. And I got like a offer letter, and I was like, what? That's crazy, but okay. Challenge accepted. I'll do it. And this was in a marketing role. So I hadn't done anything marketing. I thought marketing was overrated in my opinion. I was like, you see ads everywhere. No one really like watches them or does anything. Like marketing doesn't really do anything. But I was like, you know what? It's a cool company. I'll try it out. So I tried it out and oh my God, I love it so much. I love it so much. Now that I'm going to be going back to school in September, like and I have to leave my job, like, it's actually killing me inside because I love that job so much, and it made me realize about, like, my strengths and weaknesses and all that. Yeah, like, I think up until I even got the BMW job, like, I didn't know what I was supposed to or what I wanted to do, and I was still, like, a 1 out of 10. But I think as time went on, it definitely got better.
Right, you touched on a couple things that, like, in terms of your belief systems going into applying. So you're talking about I'm female, don't know a lot about cars, and so the chances of me getting this aren't likely. And then you had this belief system around marketing, uh, which is interesting. So just to double click on that a little bit. So it sounded like, okay, in terms of applying for BMW, if I get an interview, I can learn. So you almost kind of chalk it up to a loss, but it's an experience that you can learn from.
Exactly. Exactly. I'd always kind of gone for the big leagues. Like, I know I wanted to do a job where like it'd be it's kind of almost like an ego thing, but it's like I wanted to work at a company that people would recognize. So whenever I'm like, oh yeah, like people ask like, where do you work? Like, people are like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. So it's almost like a bit of an ego thing. Not the greatest way to get a job now that I look back at it. But of course, like whenever you're younger, like obviously like you crave that validation from other people and you like praise. And so you kind of do stupid stuff sometimes. But I think I realized that it's after like doing this job, but it's so much more than that, right? It's more like satisfaction and fulfillment that you feel from within. Like speaking of satisfaction and fulfillment, like I worked at BMW and everything, and that was great. And it really primed me really well to be a professional, like to be a better professional out there in the world. But I feel like there was still a fulfillment piece missing, and I always had that missing regardless of whatever job I went to. And I knew that as long as I was working in the corporate world, that would never go away. But I was like, "Okay, I really like working in the corporate world. It challenges me in a different way that nonprofit sector would never do." So I was like, "How do I solve it?" So funny enough, a friend and I, we were given the opportunity to teach a financial literacy course to foster kids, so kids in the foster care system. And I thought it was like a one and done thing. But she came to me with the opportunity because she knew that I've always had a dream to like adopt a kid. That's something that's always been on my mind and I still stay true to that. Like that'd be my dream. And I was like, oh my God, like interacting with foster kids, like absolutely. And I had experience in the banking industry, working in retail banking. So I had a lot of personal finance experience as well. So I was like, yeah, like absolutely. These are like the two things that I really enjoy. Let's do it. And I thought it was gonna be like a one and done thing. Like you do it once in a while and it's done. But we actually made a whole business out of it. We have grown it and built it into something that both of us really enjoy. It's called Financial Futures Education. And it's basically a company that works with underprivileged youth who are struggling. And basically, we sit with them and teach them personal finance in a way that the traditional classroom necessarily wouldn't. So that's something that gives me the fulfillment side of it. So I work my corporate job to prime me as a professional. And then on the personal side, I work at I've built a business that helps me give back to my community. So it's been a really cool seesaw, so to say, between nonprofit and priming myself as a professional, and I've been really enjoying it.
I love hearing that you weren't putting all your eggs in one basket in terms of relying on your career to address all of the things that you might want to accomplish in life. And I think that's a really important thing for anybody going through, finding themselves just coming out of university is you don't need your career to define you 100%. There are other avenues that you can initiate on your own. And the other point that I wanted to just maybe touch on is I know you got a role at BMW, but it wasn't necessarily the dream role. It was something that you got your foot in the door. And then from what I understand, an opportunity arise. So how did that work out again?
Sorry, it was
With the colleague, I think there was a colleague that got a promotion.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. So yes, exactly that. So whenever yeah, exactly that. So I got into BMW and started. So like it was an internship opportunity and still is an internship. And at first it was a little slow, as every job is. You're getting, we're getting oriented with everything and all that stuff. Um, but things changed. So the colleague that I worked most closely with, he kind of held my hand throughout, like at the very beginning. Like he taught me everything. I have so much respect for the guy. He taught me everything. But of course, sometimes good things come to an end. And he got a promotion within the company. So he moved to a completely different department. So now he was the main point of contact for that particular area of marketing. And now he was gone. So, and I was like, okay, what does this mean? So it was basically just me and my manager handling that particular area of marketing. And of course, like, he had to go, like, he would be on vacation certain days and like he'd be out of the office. And it's very hard for one person to handle all like that side of marketing. So naturally, certain responsibilities came on me that normally, typically, an intern wouldn't have the opportunity to handle. And when I got those responsibilities, I was on top of the world. And that is when I realized my strengths and my weaknesses. I'm someone that likes strategic thinking. I'm someone that likes to problem solve. I'm not someone that necessarily likes research. Like, I can't sit at a computer and do research and be like, yes, like I love doing this day in and day out. But I'm someone who loves like, okay, like this is a problem. How can we solve it? What avenues are there to explore? How do we manage different stakeholders? Just things like that. And that experience was so valuable. And sometimes it just goes to show that even if something seems a little iffy, just take the plunge. Just do it. Just try it out. Worst case, you don't like it, you move back. That's okay. You can get out of it. But just try. Always try. And to that point, I always had that mindset, even in the job. Funny enough, I within BMW, like I'd always see like a colleague walking in and out. Like we would, say hi, hello, and then eventually that turned into small talk. I didn't really know who he was because I was still like super new in the business. And then later on, I find out that he's the CFO of BMW. Very, very nice guy, very down to earth guy. And I was like, that's really cool. So I went up to him one day to his office, and I was like, hey, like, if you have a chance, whenever you have a minute, like, can we just book like a really quick 15, maybe 30-minute chat? And he's like, yeah, let's do lunch. I'll book us in for the hour. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And I was like, sometimes all you need to do is just ask. And then I had lunch with him, and oh my God, what an amazing guy. He's truly, truly amazing. Had such wonderful conversations about work and just life in general. And then someone messaged me and she was like, I just saw you have lunch with the CFO. That is amazing. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, I really appreciate that. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I guess if you see like an intern and a CFO having lunch together, like, yeah, that definitely will get to take a double look. But it just goes to show that sometimes just take the plunge, just ask, just do it. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, right? So
That's really neat. Can you maybe just illustrate a couple of things that you might have spoken about within the discussion? Because we talked about like the CFO and that person being in the role versus the human being. So how did that conversation look?
So him and I were, whenever we would like, initially, whenever we would have small talk and like whenever he would be getting lunch and I'd be getting lunch in the cafeteria, I was like, oh, like, that's a pretty healthy meal. Like, we would talk about like our dietary preferences of how he doesn't like to eat meat too much and just things like that. And then whenever we sat down, we just talked about, and I just asked him, I was like, you're a CFO. You've been in this position for quite some time. He came from Germany, so he's been in different countries working at different BMW locations around the world. And I was like, how do you manage that? Like being a CFO and doing so much, like how do you feel like you give back to the world? Because at the end of the day, the corporate world is a corporate world. And sometimes that feeling of fulfillment, you sometimes feel like you miss that. Especially, like, as a CFO, you're not necessarily working with, like, the ESG department or the CSR department, like, you're just kind of working finances. So it's like, how do you feel like that sense of fulfillment? And what he said was so profound, I don't think I'll ever forget it. He literally said, he's like, "Sometimes it doesn't have to be in a grand way." He's like, "I have a friend who quit his job and started building schools in another country for kids who needed it." He's like, "That's fantastic for him, and I go and visit him all the time, but that's not something I can do." And he's like, "Something that I can do though is maybe I'll leave an hour early from work and go pick up my daughter from school rather than having her ride the bus. And just seeing her smile makes my day." Or sometimes I'll invite a friend over who I know is having a hard time, cook him dinner and just listen to him. Sometimes I'll cook for my wife rather than having like I know she doesn't like to cook, so one day like I'll take that over. And he's like, sometimes it's just the little things that kind of add up. And I'm like, my God. Like I think I was finding fulfillment with a job title. Like I have to teach financial literacy or I have to do something really crazy. Sometimes it's just in your own home with the people that you have around you. And I thought that was beautiful. Not to say that I would give up my financial literacy thing. Like I love that. And I don't think I ever could give it up. But sometimes whenever like I just remind myself that I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I don't feel like I'm giving back enough. Sometimes just, like I'd maybe sit with my brother a little longer and just talk to him or, sit with your mom or something like that. So I find that to be really, really that take was really interesting, and I found that to be so profound. And I think I'll continue to keep pulling that and reminding myself that it's the little things that count.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it sounds like you've learned quite a bit in a short period of time, which is really awesome. In terms of just if there was do you have any surprises working your first role full time in like, your first shot at a career? Any eye-opening moments in general or?
I find it shocking that my manager had that much faith in me. Like the stuff that I got to do, I was like, "Are you sure you want to trust the intern with this?" But I think sometimes people are a lot more willing to help than we realize. I think sometimes whenever we hear about the bad things that happen in the world, we tend to almost become a little hard and become a little bitter towards that. It's like the news, for example, like they kind of profit off of like telling you about the stuff that happens around the world, and most of it's not positive. And that's okay. Like you should be in the know, you should be knowing what's happening, and you shouldn't necessarily turn a blind eye to that. But sometimes like just like realizing that people aren't as bad as they seem to be, I think that's the biggest takeaway I have from this job because I've seen people in very high places, like we've worked with like celebrities and influencers and stuff, and some of them are really down to earth people. We assume that these people up in high places, like they probably are snobby or have an attitude. Don't assume that. And yes, it's true that some people are, but I don't think it's necessarily fair for us to assume that. So I think it's almost like go into everything with the mindset that everyone has good intentions and that energy kind of bleeds through and kind of like people understand that and realize that and they become a bit more vulnerable and open to you. So yeah. So adding a little bit more heart to the business, so to say.
It's good. Some good advice, and let's keep going on that theme. So, looking back at your maybe some of the monotony of applying for jobs, sometimes it could seem like just a never-ending exercise for you. Can you give us a sense of what you did to either break up the monotony or to kind of recalibrate? Because it could be seen as maybe redundant after so many days, weeks of doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, job searching is a never ending thing. There are millions of jobs out there. And the worst part is that even though you apply to a bunch of them, you don't necessarily have to get a response. There'll be a lot of job openings. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. And I think it's very disheartening, but you just have to remember to keep going. And I think the one thing that helped ground me was having a routine. Whenever I was working my part-time in my nonprofit, I would sleep late, wake up late, and I would maybe work for a couple of hours, and then it was nighttime again. And I was like, time to go to bed. And then, the same cycle kind of was repeated, and it just didn't feel good. And then I switched things up. Whenever I started job searching, I'm like, okay, I'm going to add a bit more structure to my life. I'm going to act as if I already have a job, right? Because job searching in itself, in my opinion, is a job. Like
Yes.
it requires a lot of work. And so I would wake up early enough that like it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I would have breakfast, go to the gym, work out, come back home, shower, eat breakfast, and then I would sit down and start working. And I would work till like 4 or 5 p.m. And then I was like, okay, now time to close up and spend some time with my family. So things like that. Like I think having a routine is really, really helpful because first of all, it gets you in the groove of actually having a job. And I think having a routine gives you more structure as well, which makes you feel a bit more fulfilled and makes you feel a lot more productive. So yeah.
Definitely. I think my own personal examples, whenever I have a couple of days off and I don't have stuff planned, it's the opportunity to let the day kind of go slip away from itself. But I find the best days off, and it doesn't have to be hardcore chores that you do within the day off, but I find that having a couple of activities mapped out where, it is somewhat structured, the day doesn't slip away and you can make the best use of it. So I like that perspective. So in general, you mentioned that you're doing the financial literacy business on the side. How is that going in general with your business partner?
It's going really well. I think sometimes whenever I'm doing like the back end stuff, like because me and my partner, like we're the founders of the business, like sometimes we forget what the prize is. Trying to make sure everything's aligned and making sure logistics line up and sending emails and things like that. And it's like, oh my God, this is so much work. And then I go and teach my session and I'm like, oh my God, I know I'm doing this. I remember now. Because the kids, like, whenever they learn and they grasp the concept, you're like, "Oh my god, all this work was so worth it." So it's been going really well. I think one thing I would definitely wanna do, like, sometimes near the beginning of your business, you don't necessarily have a choice, but once things kind of start to stabilize and whatnot, like, I would love to stay involved with teaching the kids because I think that's what keeps me going. S so, yeah.
Yeah, it's super neat. I think obviously it's been said many times, there's a massive gap in the education system in terms of financial literacy. And I guess this is where I can maybe touch on being far removed from early stages of my career, giving a little bit of guidance to those that are listening is the sooner you can get familiar with your finances and
Yes.
get the education that comes along with knowing how to invest, what's being done with your money if you have a financial advisor, maybe even considering investing in real estate, that sort of thing. It goes along the theme that we were talking about in terms of putting all of your eggs in one basket. So you had your career at BMW, you're doing the financial literacy thing to touch on like the fulfillment element. It's just a really cool thing, and I think important for people embarking on the career to make sure they know how to make their money work for them so that you're not relying again 100% on your career to be the sole income provider. If you do it the right way, you're getting income from different streams and you have the ability to make choices in life rather than be beholden to your employer.
Precisely.
Good on you and your business partner for getting kids on the right
Thank
track.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, I think we are at an end here. You've been very generous with your time. I just want to thank Sanya for, of course, joining us on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody for listening. So we will be continuing this journey in terms of having different individuals on with different perspectives. But Sanya is the first go at this. So Sanya, thank you for being a trooper and being the first guest on the Flashback Files podcast. Take care.
Okay.